where does the parent come into this, right? If your kid's going to play high school soccer and play club soccer, that's where most of our problems are occurring. I see it with athletes coming into Auburn. They are competing in club soccer, simultaneously playing high school soccer. Do I need to play both high school and club at the same exact time? Yes, you don't necessarily want to give up one. I understand that, but what's your long-term goals? If you're an athlete coming into the college soccer space, maybe we need to take a step back and understand, all right, I've signed a national letter of intent. I'm going to this school. I don't need to be doing all this extra stuff. And if we're not giving ourselves proper time and recovery from those actions, that's when we're seeing a higher surplus of these non-contact ACL injuries. We're just going and going and going with zero rest at all.
Mallory, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me back.
So, your last episode was a hit. I think everyone is always so curious about what goes on in D1 college weight room. So, thank you for coming on for that. That was so fun.
Yeah, that was great and a lot of follow-up on that, so I'm excited to do this.
Yeah, I know we talked a lot about college athletes and how to prepare for the college level, but today we're going to talk more about the youth female athlete space and what's going on with youth sports schedules, injuries, how parents play a role in injury risk, which I actually haven't talked about on the podcast yet. I think a lot of people tend to blame, oh, well, the team coach or the strength coach or the turf or hormones, but parents don't look at how they play a role in injury risk as well. And you had a really great post on Instagram that was heard around the world, and I'm going to read it if that's okay.
Yep, let's do it. I put it
Okay.
out there so everyone can hear it again.
It was amazing. I was like, I need to share this 1,000 times. So here we go, guys. ACL injuries in female youth soccer are occurring at an alarming rate. The high school I attended recently had 5 ACL ruptures in just a few months. It's easy to point fingers at club and high school coaches, but there's an important piece that often gets overlooked. Parents and athletes are active decision makers in the ecosystem. The training schedules, the teams you play for, the amount of rest you get, those choices are not passive. You are in the driver's seat. Are you saying yes to every tournament, showcase, and can't miss camp just because it's offered? More isn't always better. Constant competition without true recovery doesn't build greatness, it builds breakdown. Your kid doesn't need more games, they need more support between them. Are recovery days really recovery days, or are they just one more private training session? Skill work has a place, but not at the expense of the athlete's nervous system, joints, and long term health. If every day is go, the body never gets to rebuild. Rest is a training strategy, not laziness. Are you investing in performance training that actually improves movement quality, strength, speed, and resilience, or just flashy cone drills that look intense on Instagram? Quality performance training minimizes injury risk. Quality performance training builds confidence. Quality performance training prepares athletes for the demands of the sport, not just the highlight reel. Drop the mic.
A
So,
lot's going on there. A lot of thoughts that occurred on my morning walk that day.
yeah, it was really good. And one thing that sticks out to me that just started off this post was you talking about the 5 ACL ruptures on a school team. And sadly, I've heard this in my area as well in Tampa. I know one high school close by that has 4 freshmen with ACL tears right now, and they had to miss their freshman season. It's a lot, and that shouldn't be happening. And a lot of them are non-contact, which also can be minimized by a lot. But I just don't think people are looking at, okay, how do the parents and the athletes play a role in this? And the other week I had Raymond Verheyen on, and he was talking about this concept of accumulated fatigue leading to injury risk. And a lot of people think, oh, well, it's just a lack of strength problem. But like you are alluding to in this post, it's also a load problem and a lack of recovery problem. So there's a lot that goes into injury risk, but I really want to challenge the parents listening today to take a hard look at the decisions they're making for their athlete. So is there anything you want to just dive into with this or just some thoughts for the parents? Hey guys, just want to take a quick moment to shout out our sponsor, Simply Faster, and one of my favorite speed timing systems from them, the Free Lap. I use it for my own sprint training as well as for my athletes, and they love it. It's super easy to set up, you can take it to the field on your own, and you can get accurate speed times to track your progress. Check the Free Lap link in the caption below to start adding timing into your speed sessions. If you know me, you know I love my Free Lap. If you're serious about speed, it's time to start timing.
Yeah, let's just start at the very beginning of that post, right? The high school I attended, now I graduated from there almost 10 years ago. Five ACL ruptures in the span of 2 months of a high school soccer season. And some of those people are have kid those some of those kids parents, my family is close with, they know them, they're seeking me out, having conversations, trying to better understand now. And that's great, but how do we get on the front end of it? How do we start educating before these injuries do occur so that athletes then have a foundation of strength, speed, endurance, so if slash when, because an injury is inevitable, they have a greater foundation to return from injury, because now these kids have had no foundation of performance training and they're being exposed to physical therapy, performance training now on the back end. But let's look at this. These parents, right? These are the conversations I'm having. They're like, oh, the soccer coach is not well educated enough, right? How do we help them better understand how to plan practice, when to do conditioning, when to do strength work? Let's take a step back as the parent and recognize that the high school soccer coach is most likely a teacher, and they are just simply coaching high school soccer because they enjoy the sport, or unfortunately sometimes it's a little bit of extra cash, but not enough extra cash for the bandwidth of work that they're dealing with. And they're mostly hopefully just there to pour into and invest in young people. They may not be a professional in the soccer realm. That's what your club, your DA, your ECNL teams are for, right? The high school soccer space is more for like, okay, enjoyment of sport and camaraderie and a great outlet for young people to be a part of something bigger than themselves. So have to recognize that a lot of these high school coaches, they got a lot on their plate outside of just the soccer. So where does the parent come into this, right? If your kid's going to play high school soccer and play club soccer, that's where most of our problems are occurring. I see it with athletes coming into Auburn. They are competing in club soccer, simultaneously playing high school soccer. That means on any given week, they're playing 4 matches, not having a day off, practicing a ton. So we have to sit back as a parent, as an athlete. There's got to be some give or take. Do I need to play both high school and club at the same exact time? Yes, you don't necessarily want to give up one. I understand that, but what's your long-term goals? If you're an athlete coming into the college soccer space, maybe we need to take a step back and understand, all right, I've signed a national letter of intent. I'm going to this school. I don't need to be doing all this extra stuff.
Can you talk about why those rest days are so important for reducing injury? Because I think people here say, oh, you need recovery, but they don't understand the mechanism of recovery and how it helps.
Yeah, I think when I look at rest days, people ask a lot about active recovery, and I'm like, I don't know if active and rest go in the same sentence. Yes, there's something to be said for getting up and going for a walk and seeing the sun and getting your body moving and having like blood circulation to help enhance like muscle recovery. But there's not many things, in my opinion, that fall in that category as really moving the needle forward. But we have to look at the sport of soccer and the demands of soccer, right? Especially in match play or intense training sessions, athletes are getting exposed to a ton of acceleration and deceleration efforts. And really focusing in on those deceleration efforts, it's one of the most taxing stimulus that the lower portion of the body will have to withstand. And if we're not giving ourselves proper time and recovery from those actions, that's when we're seeing a higher surplus of these non-contact ACL injuries. We're just going and going and going with zero rest at all. And people think, oh, a rest day can be me just go juggling the ball, kicking the ball against the wall a little bit, but you're just not letting your central nervous system or your musculoskeletal system to come all the way back down and regroup and rebuild. And I think my biggest straightforward answer, right, is when an athlete is in the gym, when they're on the field, training of any sort, all we're doing is breaking down muscle. This is my big thing I talk about like in the gym, right? When you come in the gym, all we're doing is stressing your muscle, breaking it down, and then you have to step away, and the growth process happens during rest. It doesn't happen when you're in the gym. Yes, it's a key component, but we're breaking you down. Now you need to go rest so that your muscle can grow. And many things are a part of that, right? How we sleep, how we manage stress, and really importantly, how we're fueling to help rebuild that muscle.
Mhm. You make such a good point there that some people think just doing a light skills session, like juggling or dribbling around cones with their skills trainer, is a recovery day. But I don't think people take the central nervous system into account too, and how that needs recovery as well in order for the muscles to do their job during those deceleration movements. And that's like one of the biggest mistakes I see is people scheduling more skills training during the season. I mean, like you said, there's a place for it, but in season, I don't know because a lot of these girls practice 4 days a week. So it's like, you're going to schedule that on a Friday before weekend games, like on a Sunday when that should be your off day.
And I'm not a psychologist, right? And I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers to anything at all. I'm all about sharing my thoughts and provoking other people to think deeply about things. And so I just think about the emotional aspect of on your off day, putting your cleats on and going out to the field. That there's an emotion, there has to be an emotional portion of the whole entire ecosystem that, okay, my body, I'm telling my body it's not actually a day off. I'm still putting on my cleats. I'm still finding my identity and myself on this field with this ball. I would just really encourage people, okay, can you at least start with one off day? Can we have one complete off day where we're just, for young athletes, youth athletes, we're not thinking about soccer? Can we just think about like who you are outside of that young girl, young boy, no matter what sport you play, outside of who you are as that athlete and just be a kid?
Mhm. I think that one off day is such a good suggestion. And I've had a lot of other like physical therapists, doctors, and physios say that on the podcast. Please pencil in at least one off day. And if there's like a week or two where you can do that second off day, do it. And I think we're just in this culture of more is better. And then when girls play games, I'm finding this too. Maybe they look slow to the ball. And then the parent from the outside thinks, oh, she's out of shape. We need to do even more. And then she gets in this downward spiral of overuse and then something more catastrophic like an ACL tear. So parents really need to use discernment. Is she out of shape? Does she need more? Or does she just simply need more rest?
There's things that are out of the parents' control, right? And so, for example, I like this past weekend, our coaching staff went to Phoenix for an ECNL event. And coaches really aren't staying for those Sunday matches anymore because it's the third match of the weekend. Like, you don't actually find out how great of a soccer player someone is the third match within 48 hours. You find out maybe who's a little more durable, but I wouldn't even make that argument. And you just hear things of, oh, so and so had to pull themselves out of the match for this and that. And it's like, okay, we're just breaking these kids down, exposing them to a surplus of match play where parents and kids probably think, oh, these college coaches are going to be there and watch me all weekend, where we're starting to learn, okay, by those third games of the weekend, no one's really hanging around to find out who the superstar is because they got nothing left to give.
That's so true. And it's also not transferable to the college soccer schedule anyway. Like you guys usually have a 48 recovery window if you play on a Friday night and then a Sunday night. So it's not realistic for college soccer. So yeah, I've heard a lot of college coaches just peace out by that third game because they know they're like, this is pointless for me to watch. Everyone's falling apart and it doesn't tell me how good someone is.
Right. And I hope the conversation around that, the right people are hearing those things to drive change within the structure that is outside of the coach or parent or athlete control.
Yeah. Now, is there anything else parents can do? I mean, you mentioned finding quality strength and conditioning program, which I see is also a really big issue.
It's that piece, right? Of finding a quality performance training. And that can be hard to do in this day and age. There's a lot of things on social media, and you think, oh, this is the answer because the local speed bro is offering X, Y, and Z. But finding someone that teaches the basics and teaches them really well, and I think we probably touched on this on the last podcast I was on. Um, but making that an intricate part of your child's development. What I'm doing at the college level is not what a middle schooler needs to be doing, and understanding that dynamic, right? And I think that we're not understanding that. And I don't, it's not the fault of the parents, right? They're just soaking in information that they find online a lot of the times. And I was listening to a podcast this morning about the MLS team in Charlotte. I think it's Charlotte FC. Now I'm drawing a blank. But they talked about their development from the academy level to the first team, and all those athletes train out of the same gym and how they structure their development. Sounds like they're doing a phenomenal job on the men's side there. And understanding, okay, they're middle school kids. This is the foundation, the key movement patterns. And then when they move into that high school age, that's when they truly start focusing on speed and power development and so on and so forth, right? Your middle school athlete doesn't necessarily need to be doing true speed work. They need to be learning how to squat, hinge, push, pull, stabilize through their core, be strong in those movements with just their body weight before even progressing to load, and continue to progress that over the years. But that can be challenging to find that right person sometimes. But shameless plug, you're doing it. You offer that service in person and remotely. Correct me if I'm wrong. And shameless plug for me, I'm starting something that's going to be launching, I was hoping within the next 10 days, but we have a little hold up on the website. I'll be launching my own high performance training business for soccer athletes in the middle school and high school age.
It's so needed for that middle school age, especially. I think with that age, it really is about the basics, like you said. And with the growth spurts happening and girls naturally losing control of their bodies with all those changes, you have to really find someone good who can help them regain that coordination and that stability, and not just doing these wild exercises for an Instagram reel where they're pushing like a heavy sled that they're not ready for, or they're jumping off a box and their knees are totally collapsing and then they're rounding their back and falling on their toes. It makes me so frustrated. I know, like you said to me, seeing some of these videos makes you sick. And I can't keep quiet about this anymore. And I know you can't. I think a lot of people would also be like, well, you guys are being negative, you're just hating. But no, it is bad. We we are in a dire situation, and there's a lot of strength coaches out there who are doing a great job, but I'm going to call out people who aren't, because we have kids in our care, and the first thing should be to do no harm. And a lot of these videos Mallory and I see are just shocking. For girls going through growth, man, it's dangerous, and that can contribute to more compensations and ACL injuries that manifest in high school.
Yeah, I think a key point you said in there is just exercises, right? And I think there's also parents out there that see things online, or athletes that see different exercise selection online and just find a way to implement it into their routine. Right or wrong. I think there's enough parents out there that have the right mindset of providing care and development for their athletes. They just don't know how to structure it. And one of my coworkers said to me the other day, he challenged me. He's like, if you're going to share all these things on social media, these videos of different exercise selection, then why should people even buy your training once you sell it? I said, because it's over time, longitudinally, where it's about progression and regression and exercise selection and volume and intensity. I'm going to provide 4 week blocks where you're probably going to goblet squat every Monday for 4 weeks. And we're not going to progress from that until I know your movement quality as well. Where a lot of the times, what we're seeing online in these highlight reels is, oh, Sally's coming in and doing this sled today and this heavy trap bar squat to jump. And then the next time she comes in, we're doing this other array of exercises. That's not moving the needle forward, in my opinion, for long-term athletic development. It's just random exercises on a given day. You're working out, you're not training. And that's where I want to start to decipher things for parents and athletes. It's one thing to go work out one time and do different workouts. It's another thing to train for long-term development. And that's what people like yourself and I are trying to do. We're trying to educate on long-term development training that is mundane. It's monotonous. It seems boring. It's not flashy, but it's what these kids need.
Mhm. Yeah, a lot of the exercises I've posted online that they don't go viral, but I'm fine with that because I'm trying to show people how basic things we do, like just pogo hops, hex bar deadlifts, and there's always a starting point to all those, and then there's a progression. And whether you sign up with me or not, I don't care, but just find someone who will progress you safely based on your exercise history, your age, your training age, and any like injury history as well. I mean, that's why I always recommend people find someone in their area first. And I've actually, I don't know if you've gotten messages on this. I've gotten a few messages since I'm speaking out about this more of people from other states like Colorado, Washington, California, and they'll send me accounts of strength coaches in their area. And they're like, hey, can you let me know if this is legit? And I'm like, okay, this guy is good. Green light, green light. Ooh, red flag. Don't work with him. And I appreciate that. Like, I want people asking those questions because the truth is, not everyone can work with you and me and some of my other colleagues that I really respect. But I think it's important for parents to ask and do their research.
Right. Yes, I'm getting similar messages from parents. I've had a lot of moms reach out to me and say, like, I wish I found your account sooner. My daughter's torn her ACL.
Oh,
And, either they weren't doing training or this is the type of training they were doing. And I'm recognizing my faults in it, right? And I acknowledge, I'm like, tell the parents, I'm like, you're doing your best, right? You're growing with your child, you're learning how to parent in this ever-changing landscape of youth sports. And I applaud you for your efforts that you're putting forth, and you live and you learn for the betterment of your child moving forward, or the children that are younger than them that are also going to go through this process. And I think right in this business I'm building out, that's where we're trying, me, myself, my father, brother, we're trying to build out a community where yes, we meet with the athlete where they're at, but we're gonna have a family forum. We're gonna sit down with these parents and let them ask us questions, right? I played soccer growing up, went to mid-major, transferred to NAIA. I work in college athletics at multiple different schools. My brother played in college, transferred, plays professionally, and I have a brother that plays D3 basketball. My parents have walked through every aspect of sport you possibly could walk through with your kids. Like, we want to just come alongside parents and athletes and support and guide them through this process. And there's parents that are trying really hard to provide the best for their kids. So I applaud those people who are messaging yourself or myself and want better for their kids and want to educate themselves.
mhm. Yeah, a lot of parents that listen to this podcast are just they're like, this is a whole new world because they're blasted with all these wild training videos on Instagram, and then they come over to this side of the internet and they're like, wow, this is really basic, but it makes a lot of sense for the health of my daughter. So I'm really thankful that everyone's here. Welcome. But I do want to talk more about the ACL side of things because I do hear parents also thinking, oh, well, it's the turf, it's my daughter's hormones. We need to get her on birth control to regulate her hormones and like just all these things.
That's
And
scary.
yeah, I know that's a whole other thing. But yeah, I think just parents they're trying to learn and educate and maybe we can just talk about some of these uncontrollable factors in ACLs because I think people are worrying and putting their focus on the wrong things.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors, right? And you and I talked about this before we got on this podcast. I've touched on some of these factors on my social media. You have as well. And people will comment letting us know what the other factors are. Yes, we acknowledge all factors, I acknowledge that there's been research done about turf, about the type of shoe you should wear on turf. In the larger scheme of things, that's not where we're going to find our answers. Um, Hormones, the menstrual cycle, we're learning more. There's more research being done. Being talked about more. And I think that's why now it's at the forefront of these parents and youth athletes' minds and their attention. And it's coming up as a key component of female health and well-being that we have to be aware of. But I think that's the point that we're at. We need to be aware of it. We need to be educating on the menstrual cycle. And so I'm going to spend a little bit of time here talking about this. And I think I've messaged you about it, right? I think everyone's talking about, oh, well, during certain phases of the menstrual cycle, training should look different. I don't know if I'm there and agreeing with that. I think that step one, phase one, can we educate young women on their menstrual cycle? Can you understand the four phases of the menstrual cycle, what's happening with your hormones during those phases, and how it's influencing maybe how the body's feeling, how are hormones fluctuating up and down? At what points are we assuming that we're more susceptible to injury, right? How does fueling and supplementation come into that? I don't know where we're doing that for young athletes. And I look at myself and I'm trying to educate myself better to educate the young women I work with and educate myself in understanding my female biology more. But I think that's where it starts. We need to, as parents, have difficult, uncomfortable, I guess, conversations about menstruation and the different phases of the menstrual cycle. I don't think it should be an uncomfortable, taboo topic anymore. It should be something that we can openly talk about because it's biology. It's how we were made, and it's not going anywhere. It's not going to change.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I think a lot of people are blaming, oh, well, the big scary menstrual cycle and estrogen. And I'm like, well, we should have a menstrual cycle. We should have estrogen, and it's not going away. And I think, like you said, it starts with that education. Like, first and foremost, let's have regular cycles. Let's educate girls on why that's important. And then once we get there, we can give them tools if maybe they're having negative symptoms, and usually those are lifestyle factors and different nutrient deficiencies. But yeah, I think it just really starts with the needle movers, like you said. And then as far as the injury risk during certain phases, it's the research is so all over the place right now, and it's so contradicting. Some studies will be like, oh, well, it happens during ovulation because estrogen is at its peak and the joints are more lax and more susceptible to forces. But then another study will say the opposite and be like, oh, well, it happens when they feel good during the follicular phase because when athletes feel good, they run at higher speeds. And when you
Mhm.
run at higher speeds, you're slamming on the knee and decelerating harder. And I'm like, oh, well, that could make sense too. So it's like it can occur at any point. So we're probably better off while we're in a holding period now, waiting for more to just focus on the basics.
Yeah, and I think you just touched on it. The reality is it's so individualized, right? Yes, we have this overarching female biology, but each individual cycle is different. The length of the cycle, how many days they're menstruating is different. The length of each phase of the cycle varies. It's so individualistic but again, I think the framework starts with, can each female understand what the cycle is, right? What did that consists of? What's happening within their body? And then start tracking your cycle, right? I think that's step one. I did this for many months recently, right? Okay, track when your first day of menstruation, your last day of menstruation, your symptoms throughout that, how that makes you feel. Start understanding your body more and so that you can be an advocate for yourself. I think it goes back to the whole conversation is parents need to be advocates for their young athletes. We need to empower young athletes or athletes at any age and any level to be advocates for themselves and their bodies. And if we don't understand what our body is telling us, then it's really hard to advocate for yourself.
Mhm. I'll actually link an episode in the caption below with some advice on symptom management with another guest I had on. So be sure to check that out because it can be as simple as nutrition or hydration or electrolyte imbalances. So be sure to check that out. And I think it should be about empowering female athletes so that they can at least mitigate their symptoms and hopefully get to a point where they can get rid of them altogether. I've seen pretty amazing stories with that too, but it takes time. You got to do some digging and it's trial and error. And like you said, it's individual, so everyone needs to keep their eye on their own paper and just do their own research.
Yes, and it comes with ebbs and flows, right? And I've being a woman, I've walked through it myself and I have really great seasons where I feel like I really understand my body and how it's feeling and what makes it feel good and what things I'm doing that I would call now to get in like mental health. I read this book called The Happiness Trap and it talks about towards moves and away moves. What moves was I making to get me towards the place of health and well-being and how I want to feel and what moves were I making that was moving me away from that. So I've kind of learned that within my female biology. What are things I do that really help me feel good, and what are things that probably hinder me in the process of feeling my best?
Yeah, that's really brilliant. Now, I want to come back to just being able to sift through the S&C on Instagram because in the post you mentioned that quality performance training should be about building athletes, their health, their confidence, and not about the Instagram highlight reel. And again, I see so many exercises on Instagram where it's just these crazy exercises just to look cool, but the kid is like collapsing or there's poor technique, there's no coaching going on. So, how can parents sift through this all? Are there any red flags that they should look out for when looking at training accounts and considering hiring a coach?
There's probably a lot of red flags. But it just goes back
So
to
bad.
like I don't have a great answer. Maybe you'll have a better answer than I do. I think it goes back to just who are the people out there that are doing simple really well? And how would I identify simple for a youth athlete who is squatting, who is hinging? Squat be both legs or unilateral, front squat, back squat, goblet squat, reverse lunge, lateral lunge. Who's hinging? So glute bridges, RDLs, right? Are we teaching athletes to how to hinge at the hips, develop the posterior chain? Who's doing pulling and pushing movements? I think a great starter point is if you've got a middle school aged kid, are they really confident and strong and empowered in body weight exercises? I'm big on if you are putting a kid under a barbell to bench press, they better know how to do a push up. So find those people first. Find the people who are teaching athletes to be stable with just their body weight. And then building off of that. So then I think also for the high school athlete, you're not looking for your local speed bro. You're looking for someone who's still building strength and stability and power in the gym. It's not just things going on the field because you're filling that bucket. That's all we've been talking about. You're filling the on-field bucket. That bucket is full, if not overfilled. We don't need more acceleration, deceleration, and change of direction. We need more gym-based movement patterns where we're building strength and durability. So that's probably where I would start of what to look for.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good advice. Yeah, for the middle school athletes, can they nail down body weight with control first? And also, they're not like collapsing their posture, especially on those hinging movements. I know I sent you a video today on, I think the girl, she had to have been 10 or 11, and she was doing a heavy kettlebell deadlift, and her back was rounded. And the first thing I thought was, ooh, her spine. That's not going to end well. So why not take away the kettlebell and get her hinging with a wall, make sure her chest is up, she has good posture, she's not rounding. So just things like that. And then as far as like deceleration stuff, I know you post a lot of plyometrics, jumping and landing, and you're showing really good technique. And I think we should talk about what parents should look for because I also see a lot of wild jumping and landing drills on Instagram that are not under control. Like girls are collapsing during box jumps, depth jumps, they're forward on their toes, putting more stress on the knees wobbling left and right. So, what should people look for with those jumping and landing drills?
Yeah, and uh, me being naive is me thinking that a lot of times they're going and doing these drills once and then they're not revisiting the drill, right? And so my assumption is, okay, they're doing this broad jump and they may not do a broad jump again for 3 weeks because again, they're just doing workouts, they're not doing training. So I would just want to use a youth athlete I train remotely, for example. We just started with pogo hops. She got really good at pogo hops and doing some single leg, like some bounding laterally on a single leg. It wasn't pretty the first time.
Hmm.
Right? And her dad would send videos and she wasn't rhythmic and coordinated. She's 10 years old. She's learning. And she did them every single week for 4 weeks before we progressed to something different or more advanced. And I wouldn't say anything we progressed to was more advanced. It was just different, and or there was another layer to it. But there's a piece of different plyometrics. Yes, we need variety, but I don't think our youth athletes need as much variety. They just need consistency and learning how to organize and coordinate their body through those stimuli and exercise selection you're already providing them. Um, does that answer your question? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, it does. And I like what you said about just your progressions there and also just not a lot of equipment. You
No.
don't need a 24-inch box right now at age 10. Just those light pogos and then maybe do them traveling or in multiple directions. Like you said, there's a progression to the basic drill, but you have to
Yes.
nail it down first. And then maybe in high school we are doing more equipment and box
Yep.
jumps once you're there. But we're not starting with that. We're getting down the basics and the control first.
Right. And I think I post a video on like depth drops and I recognize I'm dropping from a high box, but for me that's a low. And Michael Boyle commented on it and I was like, oh, that's when I know that I've rage baited well, I guess.
Wait, what?
Yeah, which I have a funny story I'll have to tell you off the podcast that my interaction with him. I think he's great. I actually do. I think that, right, he's someone, he has a strong personality and speaks his mind, but I mean, the training works for him, and I think he trains youth athletes well. But his comment was, how do I decipher box height? And I don't, there's not a one size fits all. So let's just look at the depth drop, right? There's not a one size fits all. I could have two 10-year-olds and one can drop from an 18-inch box and own it. And the other one would look like a deer in headlights, right? And they just came out of the womb and can't walk correctly, like a little baby giraffe. And so I think that's an important thing to recognize that just because one 10-year-old's able to do it doesn't mean the other 10-year-old's going to be able to do it. And we may have to progress these two athletes differently. And I think for athletes watching their peers do things, just because your peers maybe excel at this thing and you don't, doesn't mean you're behind, right? Like everyone, I think that's an important thing. I talk to the youth kids I train. Everyone's going to have different strengths within the training cycle, within the training regimen, and throughout their career. It may seem like one person's surpassing the other in certain elements, but what their strength is may just be your weakness, and what your strength is may just be their weakness.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good point. And if we try and rush those kids who feel like they're behind, that can lead to those injuries and those compensations. So, guys, again, keep your eyes on your own paper. Everyone's at a different point. Even when you have two 16-year-olds side by side, they're lifting different weights. They're doing different plyo drills. So, it's going to be very different for each individual. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is just the skills training world because I think with skills training, there also is this idea of, okay, like how can I make the coolest reel with a rainbow of cones and then a bunch of hurdles and then the soccer balls involved. And my question always is what's the purpose of this drill and what are we trying to get out of it? Because if it's skills training, what skill is it training? Or is it just getting our heart rate up and looking cool?
Yeah, I don't. I think was it you that I messaged that to, that I look at some of these highlight reels on social media of skills training, quote unquote, and it's kids like, stepping through a ladder and then receiving the ball, dribbling through the cone, and then passing it into the goal. And the skills coach probably considers themselves a skills guru and a speed and agility guru. And I don't think, are we training either? I don't know. The kids are probably not actually getting enough touches on the soccer ball to say that they're developing their touch or their skill on the ball. And I'm just going to give this blanket statement, and this may frustrate some people. I think in this world of skill development, we're seeing a lot more of it. It's more popular. Kids are running their social media, doing their skill drills in their living room. That's great. I love that kids have hobbies and they are passionate about the sport. But I just question if it actually carries over onto the soccer field, and having an IQ of the game and knowing where to position yourself on the field. I've watched some kids come through the college space that really own that area, are great with the tiki-taka drills on the ball, and then you put them on a soccer field and it's like, oh, like I don't know how to sit in this pocket of space or time my run here or like read the game. So I just challenge if that's really moving the needle forward for athlete development as well as when it comes to in regards to soccer players.
Yeah, I think it's really important for parents to look at these drills, zoom out, and ask, what is the intent of this? What skill are we working on? Is it shooting with the laces well? Is it focusing on 1v1 moves or opening the hips to pass the ball at the right foot at the right time? And these all should translate to soccer. But if it's just like tippity tap, going through a ladder, then jumping over a hurdle, then doing some toe touches on the ball, then a scissors move, it's like, what's the purpose and what am I mastering in this?
Right. And I mean, you made a great point. If you're a parent looking, and I don't provide skills training, right? And I never have, but if I was a parent looking to put my kid in some type of development with a skills coach or someone that's going to help them perfect or advance a portion of their game, you need to sit back and be like, what part of my child's game am I trying to help them get better at? Great point. Are we working on shooting with our laces, toe down? Okay, that's what needs to be being practiced in this skills session. If we're working on first touch when we receive the ball, that needs to be the focus of the skills session. Yes, there may be some other smaller components, but is 80% of the session made up of that, or is only 20% of the session made up of that with 80% fluff? Because to the end of the day, parent, you are a consumer in a business. It's a business. These people are trying to make a livelihood. You need to challenge them and hold them accountable to what skill you're trying to help your athlete develop. I think that's the biggest thing, right? And we're only seeing highlight reels. So maybe we're just seeing the fluffy stuff that's maybe only 20%, right? But the important stuff where you're teaching the athlete how to strike with the ball, that's not going to get people clicks and likes. Um, so maybe they are doing a really good job. We're just seeing the fluff. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, it's just crazy looking at some of the skills training videos because like it's so weird. I never trained like that back in the day. I just did small-sided pickup and did 1v1s against my coach, and that was far better than just tap dancing through ladders and doing a bunch of touches.
Yeah.
And we weren't spending like $100 an hour for a skills coach. We just went to the park and played. So parents, if you want to save money, I mean, you're better off just playing 1v1 with your kid.
Yeah. And the power of, I mean, there's a lot of bad on social media. There's also a lot of good, and the power of the internet and these things right here, a cell phone, and YouTube. You could probably sift through social media and find enough things for your kids to practice on their own in the yard without spending money, right? That just takes, but I also understand that as a parent, you want your kid to be held accountable and they need coaching and, someone to walk them through it. They're not going to be self-motivated to go in the yard all the time. But I think if you're a parent looking to do these things and you don't trust someone in your area to do them, And the best you can do is go online, find someone of quality, and have your kid run through those things in the yard. That may be better than paying $100 for a 45-minute session.
Agreed. Now, is there anything else you would just leave the parents with in terms of minimizing ACL injury risk or just making sure their daughter stays healthy?
Yeah, I think just thought provoking, right? That you are in the driver's seat. You do have a say over your child's schedule. I know that can be difficult and challenging working in within these clubs where the schedule is overwhelming and you may be looked at as, oh, well, you're holding your kid back. You're not. You're setting up for long-term health and development as an athlete, but more importantly, as a person. And just seek out quality resources, right? If you're listening to this, Erica and I can help you. If you can't train with us, we'll point you in the direction of someone or resources where you can educate yourself for the betterment of your athletes.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'll leave your links in the caption below. So if people want to reach out to you for training or just to send you a training account and ask, hey, is this good? Will my daughter develop and stay healthy with this program? Definitely reach out to Mallory, reach out to me. We're happy to point you in the right direction because we also know a lot of people across the nation, and we can refer you to strength coaches we know who have a good body of work and a lot of experience with young athletes. So please reach out to us. And Mallory, this was great. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. I will see you next time.